My friends, it's time! The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 is closing in after nearly 5 years without a new mainline Zelda game. I mean, wow. The game sure has a huge amount of expectations to live up to. Let's not drag things out, shall we? These are things that I think should happen in order to keep Breath of the Wild 2 a fresh and a better experience than its predecessor. All based upon a little bit of both what realistically can happen and what I want to see happen. Only before one of you comments something in anger or just sheer disagreement, remember, this is my list and you're just as free to make your own. Let's get into it. Call me boring, but I'd like the main control of Link to stay the same as in Breath of the Wild. They were responsive and allowed for near-perfect control of Link in this day and age. What I do hope increases is the amount of new abilities. We already saw a few different new ones in the trailer, such as the stasis-like thing, the flamethrower, and the Senior Pink ripoff ability to swim in walls. Come on, that's exactly the same. It seems that Link might have lost the Sheikah Slate in this adventure in favor of whatever that arm power is supposed to be. As neat as the Sheikah Slate was, I don't want this arm thing to become a reskinned version of the Slate. No, for my taste, I would like the return of actual items, or at least some of them that make sense. You see, there ain't a lot of reason to feature items like the hookshot when you can literally climb anything and then glide all over the map. The items then that could make a surprise comeback in my eyes are ones like the transformation masks in Majora's Mask to access special areas, the Dominion Rod to control ancient statues such as the Guardians, and hey, why not the darn bomb shoes while I'm at it. Now, I didn't dislike the rune system per se, it made it so the whole game could be specifically designed around those abilities, thus creating wonderfully creative uses for them. Still, I guess I'm just the oddball, but I could do with a bit more variety in the abilities. I'm not just only talking about how you use them, but rather how you get them. I think it's fine to scale down the amount of challenges around the world in order to make each and every one have more of an impact and a lasting stay on the player's memory. I mean, on top of your head, how many of the 120 shrines from the base game do you remember? Now take that amount and compare it to areas of past Zelda games, such as the Fire and Ice Islands from the Wind Waker, just as an example. At least I do remember both of them significantly better than almost any of the shrines except a few. That platform tilting one comes to mind. The journey through an area like the Fire and Ice Island stays longer with the player because, first of all, visually it didn't look the same as every other shrine in the game, and it let the player explore a more natural environment to finally, rewardingly, get an item such as the Iron Boots or the Power Bracelets. Again, it must be stated that it may very well be me that only feels this way, but I find it way more entertaining than just going into a room, downloading the item at the beginning, moving a few visually uninspiring iron blocks, opening a door, and then gets an orb that at that point in the game does nothing. I'll still say that Breath of the Wild Link controls the absolute best out of any Link to me. I just want to be able to do more with him, using way more abilities. Enjoying yourself? Consider supporting me here on YouTube by subscribing, liking the video, and leaving a comment. As well as consider checking me out over on my Twitch channel where I play all kinds of games just to have fun. Some of them might even appear here on the channel in some form. Thanks for listening, now back to the video. Before leaving the gameplay topic, I want to mention weapons. You know what I'm about to say? I don't like the breakable weapons that much. I know, I sound like I dislike everything at this point about Breath of the Wild, but that's not true. Here's the deal, I know why breakable weapons exist and why they're probably gonna stay. I for one find consumable weapons to make me use them less, however. I'm the type of guy that's like this. Once I get a rare item, I keep it for what I call special occasions. That being a boss or a mini-boss. Still, I have the tendency to also basically never use them then as well because I keep thinking, what if something else stronger comes around? It's basically the same thing as in an RPG like Final Fantasy, where I know for a fact that a lot of people hog super good items and never use them for this very reason. What if I need it later? My point is that I'd rather stick to having consumable items such as potions. I don't like limiting myself with weapons as I did in Breath of the Wild. Consider making the Fire, Ice and Thunder swords something like the magic arrows from Ocarina of Time, where you had to equip it with the bows and arrows. But this time just switch the element on the fly using the D-pad like switching runes. In the end, I think the open-ended exploration is what made Breath of the Wild so good, not the weapons. They aren't reusing the original map, thanks so much. Or at least it's been significantly overhauled with the addition of floating islands and the passage of time in between games. That means I don't have to worry at all when it comes to the actual world layout, though I wonder if the exploration aspect of it all will remain the same. Will we have to go by foot all the way? Can we use the horses or the Master Cycle Zero right from the start? Whichever thing they choose, I think it will work out great. Now what I want to argue about is the dungeons, or the lack of them, that is. You all knew it was coming, and here it is. Yet another guy complaining about the lack of dungeons in Breath of the Wild. Well, I'll defend myself by saying this. I did like the divine beasts a lot as they served as the stand-in dungeons along with the shrines. I'll also say I understand the design philosophy of Breath of the Wild sorta clashes with the traditional dungeon design. Keeping the character forced in an area for a long time to progress the story ain't what Breath of the Wild was going for, and that's fine. This is where the sequel can come in and create some form of middle ground. Yes, that means I would like the game to be more linear. Shocking, isn't it? Let me say I like open world games and it fits Zelda really well. I'm just sure of one thing. I do miss the old Zelda formula. Having just recently played through Skyward Sword HD and A Link Between Worlds reminded me of that. I think the open world nature of the original Breath of the Wild worked great for that game, but since this game should be more than just a copy of that, I feel like striking a connection between the older Zelda games and this new one is the correct way forward. Think of it like this. Pokemon Legends Arceus got in the news not long ago for supposedly not being fully open world. And I can understand the frustration with players upon hearing the news since that has never been attempted in Pokemon. However, it has been in Zelda. I wouldn't mind a semi-open world such as the one Legends Arceus is supposedly gonna become in Breath of the Wild 2. That means opening up some semi-big areas as you move through the game's story instead of just having everything available from the start. This then is a great segue into the game's setting. I sincerely hope we see more big towns. I mean, at least one big town. Think Castle Town from Twilight Princess HD for what I had in mind for size and population density. I wanna see how far society has come with the defeat of Calamity Ganon from the last game. I wanna walk around and feel like I'm not just in another village. Wouldn't it be great to walk around in a living Hyrule Castle? At least before it's lifted up into the sky. I would like to see many races of creatures living and interacting in the towns. If I really could have it as I wanted, I wouldn't mind the time-specific side quests like those in Majora's Mask again. But hey, this game doesn't seem to revolve around time travel, so that'll probably remain an idea. Quickly, I want to mention music. Zelda games have an incredible set of different soundtracks. Emotional and downright epic songs are all over the place. Breath of the Wild did have music, but it wasn't that much to be honest. I did love the Hyrule Castle theme and especially that traumatizing Guardian song. And I'll even admit, the ambience accompanied by the gentle piano in the wild, no pun intended, worked for the most part. However, you know me if you've been around here for long enough. I love music in games. I will always prefer a full soundtrack as opposed to ambience. Listen to the difference of something as minuscule as the title screens between these two games. See which one immediately had a bigger emotional impact. The completely silent one or the beautiful composition by Koji Kondo. So in short, I want to see more life in the game with its music. The story is something I won't comment on. And the possibility of playing as Zelda as something is happening, I just feel nothing about. If it happens, it happens. I wouldn't say it's a necessary addition, but it would be neat to have her playable if anything. All that would matter is how the different characters would play. I suppose the most important thing is that the game is actually good, which is pretty much guaranteed either way. What do you have in mind for the sequel to Breath of the Wild? Do you agree with me or not? Let me know, and thanks for tuning in. Have a good one.